Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Everybody has the minutes from the April 18th meeting. Is there any questions or concerns on the minutes of that? Now that entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion by Brunmeyer,
Second.
second by Hack. Discussion. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Any additions or changes to the agenda? And you will notice that under reports, Monty and I have added an F. We will have an HCD spot there. So Buster, we won't forget you.
Okay.
Anything else? Any changes or additions to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Hack to approve the agenda,
Second.
second by Wolf. Discussion. All in favor of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 4A, 2016 street project. Mark and Eric are here, and we have new numbers. And these numbers are based on the bid, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything you want to add, Eric, on this?
No, I just replaced
Report.
everything from with their bid items, so all that stuff should have been updated.
Okay. Okay. And this was, you guys didn't get this email to you, so it's kind of new, so if you take a look at this, obviously all the totals have been reduced a bit. Do you have any questions on the Sunflower? And we do have, you know, I think that that's been one of your discussion points, and you know, with that 170, 345, there's 14 lots up there, so it breaks down to about 12,167 per lot. And over 15 years, it's about $810 a year without interest, so that's a little bit more palatable, I think, when you look at it that way. It's still $800 a year is still an expense, but I think it's not bad in my opinion. But any other comments for Eric on this report? Eric, when do you think we'll see mobilization?
Well, I have the contracts here for you to sign, and then I'll take them to them tomorrow, and we'll get working on setting up a date for the pre-construction meeting. And then from there, I'll try and get an idea of when they plan on starting the project.
Okay. Are we thinking like next week for pre-con meeting?
I haven't even talked to them.
Okay.
We have to get a couple things from them, a notice of intent that they filed with the state for their stormwater stuff, and then also one other item, and then once we get that, we'll give them the notice to proceed, and we'll schedule the pre-construction conference.
Okay. Do you think they'll be doing those, like Sunflower, Fayette, the ones that have more? Will they do those first, you think, or do you have any idea how the project?
I would say they would do it. I can't speak for them, but I would say they would do them concurrently, because the milling overlay can be done by a subcontractor at the same time as those, and those are definitely going to take the longest to do.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board for Eric? Okay. We don't need to take any action on this. This is just informational. Correct, Monty? Do you have the contracts with you?
Copies here with each of a tab,
Okay.
and then one will be for you guys, and I'll take the other two back.
Okay. Okay. We sign these now. Then we can give one to him when he leave if he wants, or You can stick around for the entire meeting?
I can handle
Okay, it's gonna be a while.
At least another 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you. 4B, engineering RFP. Monty, you want to talk about this, please?
Well, it has been discussed several times on coming up with a process for the appointment of the engineer. So Pat actually found a really good example of what has been used for other cities for an RFP. So we did pull that and make that available for you guys to review if we want to publish then the fact that we're doing this RFP and contact firms and use a scoring process to come up with who we want to serve as our engineer.
Okay. I think this is a nice way to see who has interest in our community, a nice way to score, see what they, how they break down and what they can offer. I've never been involved in a process quite like this before, but I think it's a good way to go about it, kind of a non-biased way to do it too. But does anybody have any thoughts on this one way or the other? Yes.
You know, like you, I think this is a very good idea, to have a scoring arrangement there, so.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. And I don't even know how many engineering firms there are out there that are interested in doing this and what terms can be. And so,
We'll have to work with Pat on.
okay, yeah. All right, so did you
Yeah,
polish one up?
Yeah, and I've got it on the screen. I don't have it sent out to you yet. I can send it out. I think, Pat, you had a chance to look at this one with just adding that scope. Yeah. So unless there's, yeah.
Probably changing that, add the points to the different areas, so you put in expressions to the point.
Yeah.
Scoring up above,
Okay.
that you know what you're.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then you just send one out to?
Well, we'll publish it
Okay.
also, and then we'll contact some of the firms that we've got contact information for, and
Okay.
let them know if we are requesting.
Okay. Very good.
I guess if there's no objection, once Pat and I have cleaned it up, if there's approval to publish it and go forward.
I think, yeah. So unless there's more discussion on what you want to see involved in this, after Pat and Monty polish it up and get the points put on there, if you guys, if we give them permission to
You
go
don't need a
forward.
motion on that, do you?
Yeah, we would.
I'll make that motion. Polish up and move forward.
Excuse me. All right, motion by Hack,
Second.
second by Stern. Discussion. Roll call.
Pat?
Aye.
Stern?
Aye.
Brunemeyer? Wolf?
Aye.
Omenauer?
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you. All right, 6A, Rough Rider Electric franchise agreement. This will be the second reading. And we do, as you can see up on the screen here and on your notes, that maps were added, and we are ready for approval of the second, for the second reading and the adoption.
Pat was thinking of.
Anything else, Pat, that you found that needs to be
No,
changed?
I was just curious as to what their territory agreement was with MDU.
Okay.
What's what?
Oh, so the pink is MVU, correct?
Yeah.
So what's the square on the upper half of that, Monty? Is that north side of 200?
Yeah, Well, no, it's actually the Centennial Edition. It's, isn't that where the school is?
Oh, school is on MDU, that's right.
It does go over to the north side of 200 as well,
Okay.
just south of the RV park.
Okay, if there's any other questions or concerns, entertain a motion for the second reading approval.
So moved.
Motion by Wolf.
Second.
And second by Hack. Discussion. Roll call.
Well,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Stern,
Aye.
Brunemeyer, excuse me, Brunemeyer,
Aye.
Ovindar.
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you. Do we need to sign that, Monty? Sign anything?
Yeah, I'll have you ready for your
Tomorrow.
signature tomorrow.
Okay. All right, down to reports. Under 8. One thing I want to talk about real briefly is Heritage Park over here where the buildings came down. And the guys have put fill back in there. They've not seeded it, or it's not totally finished off yet, but I'm in conversation with a group about putting a shelter up there, and a cement slab and then a shelter. We don't have many areas in town where we can provide larger areas for picnicking under some shelter. You know, North Star 2, there's the one shelter up there. Out at the Riverside, there's one shelter. But for larger groups, I know like IBEW talked to me the other day. They normally do their party, their summer party out in Beulah, over at the Riverside Park there, and they want to do it in Hazen. And they talked last year. They mentioned it. This year they mentioned it. They have almost 1,000 people, and they say you only have parks with small amount of shelter space, and to get groups like that, it'd be nice to be able to accommodate them. So I am in discussion with the group about putting something up over here, and it may not be till later summer, but if you, in the meantime, if you guys have any thoughts or ideas on what you'd like to see, if anything, maybe you don't want to see anything over there, just grass. I want to hear that too. But I think it'd be nice to have something up with a couple barbecue grills, the charcoal type where you can use them. But that's something I'll be working on, and I'll keep you guys informed. But please give me some input on that if you have anything. Yes?
What size are you looking at area?
It's going to be, the one we're looking at is about, I'd say, 18 wide by about 24 deep in depth.
And I know with, well, I can talk about it in my report. I know Samantha mentioned maybe putting a tree over there in that general.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if that was going to,
Sure.
and you're that one or the other.
Okay. Other than that, I've just noticed that we're getting some neighbors that are staying out in the RV park with some ATVs that are kind of tearing up some of the seating out there, and I did go out there and visit with a fellow about doing that, and I did talk to the cops too about patrolling that a little bit more, because you can tell that people that don't take a lot of pride in it because it's not theirs, so they think they can do whatever they want out there, which is kind of annoying. But I did have a conversation with one guy that I saw out there, and it's still it's in city limits. You can't just be tearing around in city limits, much less when it's muddy and you're destroying the property. So if you see something happening with four-wheelers or motorcycles out there, please let the cops know. Don't just do what I did with our dog. It's probably not the best idea.
Yeah,
So,
I drove by the other day and I noticed there's motorcycle tracks through the muddiest part of the ditch there.
yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna talk to Chuck
Yeah.
about that.
The person said it wasn't them, but I looked at the motorcycle, you couldn't even see the color it was. It was so muddy, so, yeah. That's all I have in my report. Water, sewer?
I saw that out there, when I was out there the other day looking at that. Looks pretty bad. We had a letter from a gentleman that lives on 10th Street that said that when the sewer water project went through, they collapsed an old manhole sewer. Springs of dirt has settled and now there's a big hole in my front yard. Would you please have them come by and fill it with dirt and grass seed? I asked Dick to go out there to look today because he said that he thought that the city department was on that. And he never got back to me this afternoon before I
Okay. On 10th. Okay. I don't know anything about that, so would you just keep us informed if we can find out? Okay. Do we have an address? We don't have an address on here, but yeah, maybe Adam, we'd probably get you an address for that and see what your
Bet.
thoughts are. Okay.
Yeah, there's that,
Oh, it is on there. Number 15, 10th Street, Northeast, Adam.
It's the only house on the south side.
Okay. Yeah, it's that house by the tennis court on the south side of the road. Okay.
And that's all I have.
That's it? Okay. Streets,
Crew's been out, yes, sweeping the streets and, I guess I see what cracks and stuff. If you notice, I guess Main Street there, the crews, I guess, are kind of way down, extra, I guess, sand on the cracks, so you don't face the traffic around as much.
it's a good idea.
I forgot that water boys were out cleaning out the sewers.
They are.
They've got 3/4 of it up.
With the new machine working well? Good. Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Finance, busing.
I just noticed that the busing bay has not been started yet, but it will be soon. So,
Okay.
that's all we have.
Police, fire, forest.
The only thing I got is, and reiterate, Samantha's still shooting for May 14th for her Arbor Day. I brought up in a few meetings previous, and she also mentioned possibly putting a tree over here, or around that spot, where there's stuff in there.
Actually, the one that was put up in the Centennial didn't make it, so she was gonna find a suitable replacement for that one and replace that one that was planted on Arbor Day here in the Centennial.
Okay. All right.
And that's all I have.
Okay. I'm going to back up to mine again. If you notice outside of the building, that Matt Skills, they did finish redoing that side over there. Looks good. And their banisters already started in the kitchen this week on the countertops. It'll be nice when that's done. HCD.
I'll share some good news with you. How does that sound?
We'll take it.
We just received word today now that from Joe Fink at the State Housing Agency, we ended up getting our grant for the Pioneer Home. We're actually going to get $1,981,500, which is actually 50% of the estimated cost of doing that project. And I don't recall whether or not I had mentioned to you folks that at one time we ran into a little bit of a snafu because the cost of material, cost of what we thought the 22-unit project was going to cost us. It kind of overran where we were at, and so we backed down the size to 18 units to try to get within our scope of what was allowable. A couple of things. Well, one major thing that will happen now is this, is that the Hazing Housing Authority, okay, which is a subsidiary of you folks, has filed for a single-purpose entity, which is going to be called the Hazen Pioneer Apartments, okay? And one of the things that is going to happen, which I wasn't fully aware of at the time, is that I thought that HCD was always going to be the construction firm, if you, for lack of a better term, you know, looking at everything once we get into the construction phase. Well, that responsibility is actually falling to Hazen Pioneer Apartments now, because that's where the money will be released to, okay? And so I am going to stay on kind of as their liaison person and helping them, but really as we move forward, all of those kind of the heavy-duty decisions in terms of, you know, what may be coming down the pipe, that's all going to fall back on the Hazen Pioneer Apartments group. But needless to say, it was a tough kind of final 2 weeks to get this thing all put together, and we made it. The rents are a little higher right now, projected to be a little higher than we'd like to see, but for any savings that we can find, for a $100,000 saving, we can reduce the rents by $22 a month. I have kind of an arbitrary goal of I'd like to see our project overall costs come in at least $300,000 less. I don't know if that'll happen or not. And then, of course, we also have $158,000 built into the plan for contingencies. So, being optimistic as I am, I mean, if all of that came in, you know, and in round figures, I mean, if we could lower the cost of that project by $500,000, that's $110. That would come off those rents. But we'll just wait and see how that is. Now, the other part of it is this: is that we still have some things that we need to do. We'll need to get the legal ease things firmed up. We got to get the land transfer taken care of now that we know that we're getting the money. In some of those kinds of things, we'll be working with Pat, you know, as we move forward. And I know that Greg isn't here tonight, but Greg McCarthy is the president of the Hazen Pioneer Apartments and the same as Hazen Housing Authority. So I suspect that down the road, you know, he'll probably want to come in and give you an update in terms of where things are at. Joe Armstrong, of course, has still played a very, very, very key role in all of this. Even though he's a long ways away, we've a lot of telephone calls and those kinds of things. We do have a meeting lined up for this Thursday, telephone conference with Williams Building Company. We have a couple of things that we still need to work out, but hopefully Greg and I will be able to work those out relative to some contracts and those kinds of things. So I guess I would entertain questions.
So Buster, will Hazen Housing Authority kind of be the overseer of the Hazen Pioneer Apartments then, or?
No, actually the Hazen Pioneer Apartments will be their own, do I have that right, Pat? They'll be they're going to be the long-term owner. Hazen Pioneer
They'll have their own
Apartments,
board of directors then?
which, yes, and right now, that is the same board as the Hazen Housing Authority.
Okay.
Same members.
Okay, the two different entities.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was set up as a single sole purpose entity. Now, the other thing is this too, is that we have initially the CPA who is going to be involved in the project for us is Ide Bailey, and we have been in contact with them, and it is going to be critical for us to get that 501(c) status. I think I said that right, didn't I, Pat, or is it C3? 3C or C3?
C3.
C3, okay. And they said that they would begin the paperwork for that. And now that we have received word that we'll be getting the money, I think we can get some of some of those motions, some of those things into motion.
So they're gonna be writing their own bylaws and.
Yeah, actually, Hazen Pioneer Apartments, through Pat's help, we have all of that done. Of course, I was part of the requirement, the pre-requirements
Okay.
before getting this far.
So those 18 apartments, Buster, if, you know, it's for senior housing,
Yep.
let's say 6 months goes by and you got 4 or 5 empty spots, can you rent them out to essential workforce?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
And the way that the regs work is that you can do that, and then if within that 1-year anniversary or whatever it is, if there are some folks that would become eligible to move in there, then they would have bumping rights, basically, for lack of a better term. Yeah. So, and you know, now that we know where things are at, and of course, it still is early to make a projection really on those rents. You know, we're thinking that, if we could get those, you know, under that $800 a month, and because, you know, the rent is going to include all the utility. It won't. The only thing it won't include there is it won't include the telephone hardwire, you know, internet, and it will not include cable TV. Okay. Otherwise, it will include everything else. And then the other thing is each of those units will have their own individual washer and dryers as well. And of course, because it's going to be managed by a management group, of course, no snow removal, no lawns, you know, that kind of stuff. So we're hoping that, you know, those added amenities will help with.
So
the other,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, the other part to remember is this: is that our grant application was written such so that we could get folks in there up to 140% of average median income in Mercer County. So that means that we have some latitude to go up with some people who have some assets, have some money to still be allowed to go in there. And of course, those on the other end, of course, would certainly qualify, you know, without a doubt. Yeah.
So now that you got the HIP award, are we looking at possible construction or deconstruction this summer yet? Or?
Oh yeah. Now the next phase, of course, will be to get engineering to do the next set of drawings, and then after that is accomplished, then open up for bids. And you know, it's going to be it'll be a little while yet before we see all of that happening. Our goal, of course, would be this: is that if we can get everything enclosed before the cold season, then of course a lot of that work could be finished up in the colder months indoors. And I think we should be, barring any more unforeseen circumstances, we should be okay in making those timeframes, you know. So, other questions? Yes.
I got one, not on the, I guess, housing unit, you know, but I guess, it seems like I always get this question about the, I guess, alcohol building, you know, there's a lot of.
Well, we have somebody coming to town, okay? It's one of those things that it's, they don't want us to divulge.
They've not given us permission yet
to divulge what that company is or will be, but I'm thinking that probably in May you'll know.
Well, and the last side, when they contacted me, is they want to be there in June 1 and probably not open until August. Because they'll be doing some additional work inside and on the exterior. It's a retail location. It's And they're advertising for a manager, but not all the other employee positions, and that's, they're just talking about that. Job service.
One of the things that I could just add as part of that conversation is that in the last session of the legislature, cities in North Dakota were allowed to expand their Renaissance zones. And so we are looking to expand our Renaissance zone. And I'm actually looking at doing it kind of as a two-phase thing. One is that I'm looking to do an expansion out there with 2 blocks, and then and part of the reason for it is I've been really overly consumed with this Pioneer Home, and this kind of got on the back burner for me because there is a little bit of work that needs to be involved in expansion of some of the other areas. So with the company that's coming to town, I have reached out to them with the idea that hopefully they'll be eligible for Renaissance if my local group and then you folks approve that. And of course, at that time, then the name of the business that's coming to town it'll be public knowledge. And that's probably going to happen. I'm hopeful that it'll happen at your May meeting.
They've contacted a couple local contractors to do some work in there too.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of there's a lot of word out on the street in terms of, I will say this, it's a farm supply. I think I'm safe in saying that. It's a farm supply store. Other questions? Okay.
Thanks, Buster.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to go back to my report and talk about the last MCAD meeting we just had in, last week in Beulah, Mercer County Economic Developers. We're going to start seeing some decreases in our coal severance and conversion. The past quarter, there's been less coal being not just burned but mined at the North Dakota coal mines, especially ones in Mercer County that we get direct severance and conversion from. And that is a big thing for us because our annual coal severance and conversion payment we get is about 1/3 of our budget. Bonte, would you say that much? Not quite? Yeah, pretty close, maybe more close to 1/4. And there's going to possibly be some revenue loss for our community, and I think that's one of the things you need to consider when we're talking about who's going to fight for us when it comes to our new governor, incoming president. We want to talk about that, but we may, come budget season in October, have to be looking at tightening the belt a little bit. But all the guys that were at that meeting, the coal mine managers, were just talking about, it was, first of all, it was also a warm winter, a lot less electricity had to be generated. I know that we were just told that Great River Energy, thank you, Buster, they're going to be reducing their output big time. They're going to be shutting down on a very consistent basis. They said peak times, right, Buster? They may shut down for 3 or 4 days and not produce electricity, and then fire back up again when on peak energy times. And granted, all that electricity goes directly to Minnesota. That plant, we don't get any of the benefit of electricity, but we do get the benefit of the coal severance and conversion and what they burn in that facility. So that's going to hurt us also. But Great River Energy's members in Minnesota decided that they wanted to close this one down partially, and I think backhandedly it's because of concerns about the clean coal plant. But Dan, have you heard any? Were you at the Lignite Energy Council meetings at all? Okay, all I am, Monty and I are trying to get to have Jason Bohr, or one of the other guys from the Lake Energy Council come speak to us at our next meeting, just give us an update, legislatively what they're seeing and what's happening with EPA. So, just a little update. Anything else to the reports anybody wants to add? All right, down to 11A, Arbor Day proclamation. You all got a copy of that. And if I can get a motion to approve this, we'll use this proclamation for our community Arbor Day activities.
Motion approved.
Okay, motion by Hack. Second by Stern. Discussion. Roll call.
Hack.
Aye.
Stern.
Aye.
Burnemeyer.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Omenauer.
Aye, motion passed, thank you. And that brings us to the approval of the bills.
Make a motion to approve the bills.
Okay, we have a motion by Brunmeyer to approve the bills. Second by Hack. Discussion. Roll call.
Burnemeyer.
Aye.
Hack.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Stern.
Aye.
Omenauer.
Aye, motion passed. Meeting adjourned, thank you.